Robert Eggers has a brand new movie coming to theaters this week, and that is The Northman, a film that I love, and I love almost I do love every single Robert Eggers movie, some more than the others, but in today's video, we're going to be diving in and ranking all three of his feature films. We have The Witch, The Lighthouse, and now The Northman to discuss in a full ranking. It's going to be fun discussing and going back in time to discuss some of those movies, so make sure to leave a comment on what your ranking is, as well as hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy movie reviews, rankings, and reactions, and any sort of thing that we do over here. We love talking movies and TV, and I love being able to discuss it with you guys down below in the comment section. So without further ado, let's get started. Coming in last place, while this is a ranking list from worst to best, my last place I still quite adore, and that is The Lighthouse. This is the only Robert Eggers movie that I just never have like that trance to go back and rewatch, but it is one of the ones that I remember seeing for the first time in theaters and really getting an experience. Something that Robert Eggers does so well in all of his filmography is, of course, an atmospheric experience. And for me, The Lighthouse contains that insanity, but also making like you feel like you are going insane on this deserted island in the middle of nowhere on this, again, island with a lighthouse. And for me, I just love how he was able to bring that psychological nature into this film. And in a sense, I love to say that this is very much a live action episode of SpongeBob, with a lot of rated R stuff, just in the way that Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe's characters are acting and all the things happening around them. There are tons of weird things that happen in here that I have no way of explaining. The best way that I think about it is that this film really much is taking place all inside their heads, and I really do believe that The Lighthouse is kind of like The Shining for Robert Eggers' filmography. The way that The Shining kind of works is there is a lot of psychological tension in there. There's demonic stuff, there's ghosts, whatever you want to believe in, but in the end of the day, it is about Jack Torrance and his entire family going insane and going crazy, being stuck up there. And I've always looked at The Lighthouse as kind of following some of the same templates and main folds of that, because the two main characters we are following are also doing this. Now, as well, adding in there, I think Robert Eggers' directing in here is impeccable. The way the black and white is shot, the cinematography, all sorts of things like that. Willem Dafoe is absolutely incredible. There's a lot of farting in here and jokes, and I even think Robert Pattinson is amazing, even if he's, jerking off to some mermaids and stuff. Anyways, other than that, I thought The Lighthouse was fantastic, but it is one of the few Robert Eggers movies that maybe is just a little bit too weird for me, but it's one that I wholly experienced a couple of times, and if someone ever asked me, I'd be like, yeah, it's very weird, but you should check it out. That's where it brings me to my number 2, and it actually is really hard for me to do this one, but The Northman is a masterpiece, and so is this film, and that second film is The Witch. I found myself, the first time I ever saw The Witch, to just be completely floored and stunned. This was one of those first elevated horror movies that I had seen where I went, okay, this is different. The horror genre was not my favorite at the time until like films like this and The Babadook had come into my life, because then I kind of understood that it's not just all about the jump scares. It can also be about the atmosphere itself, the performances, the culture you involve yourself in. I've always loved The Witch. I always go back to it. And it's hard going back and forth between this and The Northman, because The Witch is one of my favorite horror films of all time, as well as one of my favorite A24 movies of all time. But for me, The Northman, we'll talk about it in just a second. There's a lot to love in that movie, and a lot to say about it. And The Witch is Robert Eggers' first directorial debut, and ever since I'd seen that, I just sat there going, this guy is going to have a talented future. Whether it's the historical accuracy of the way that, they are talking, and the way that they are acting, or even, again, that delusion, that craziness that the witch brings in them when their baby disappears. Is it our daughter? Is it not? Is there an actual witch out in the forest? Is it all in our minds? There's a lot of crazy, unique things that happen in The Witch that really much, again, is a slow burn for an hour and a half, but it's a slow, dementing turn that really much haunts you at every single level. And just as how the first film I talked about, The Lighthouse, was very much about that psychological nature and these guys going crazy, The Witch is very much about a family being torn apart by a demonic entity and a witch. And one of the most iconic scenes in here for me has always remained in my head and still gives me chills with the score and some of the sound effects is, of course, the scene when we first meet Black Phillip and the hands that come out, and really much that interaction between him and Anya Taylor-Joy. It is frightening, but it is one of the best experiences that I've ever seen in a theater, and it's one of my favorite horror films to always go back and revisit. And it's one of the few that, again, I will always recommend. Even if I know not everyone's going to love this movie, it's one that if you give yourself to the film, you can very much enhance yourself. It is so wildly unique, and I love it. The Witch is perfection. But like I mentioned, at my number one is The Northman. I found Robert Eggers has really much built his way up to this big Viking epic. Reportedly, at first, $90 million is given, but I guess it's only a $75 million movie. Probably the 90 was about the marketing. For me, I thought The Northman was probably, right now it's a three-way tie for my number one of the year. The Northman is a type of film that absolutely really much infuses and reinvigorates some people's love for filmmaking, as well as I think this will be inspiring to some younger people who have never seen like a lot of films like this, that watch this for the first time and go, I am floored, and this is the type of movie that I would want to make one day. Robert Eggers created a film that is going to inspire that next generation of filmmakers with his new movie, The Northman. Whether it is from the performances that he gets from Alexander Skarsgård, Ethan Hawke, Nicole Kidman, Anya Taylor-Joy, they are all amazing in this film. But as well, on the flip side, the big star of it is truly Robert Eggers. Again, he brings this atmospheric experience that, again, infuses some horror to it all, because there are some horror-like elements in here, especially with the way that he did film a lot of the night scenes with this kind of black and white tint from the cinematographer, which is just amazing, and it blew me away every time. Even the way that he infused the Norse mythology inside the story, I was always blown away by every single layer. And I continued to be amazed by that Norse mythology and the way that they really much developed it in every single way, and really much I was so impressed with what Robert Eggers was able to do with it. He makes it weird in his own style, but in a way that feels historically accurate in bringing to life the world of the Vikings. This revenge tale is blood-soaked, and the violence is top tier, but it is very much, again, bringing you in and making you feel like you were right there with everyone inside this film. Claes Bang is an actor who I've never really followed in the past. A lot of people told me to go watch certain things that he's in. He's excellent in here as well, and I really much was so impressed with Robert Eggers' The Northman. It is my favorite film of his, and I can't wait to see it again. I can't wait to show it to my friends, my family, and really much hype the hell out of this film, because it comes out this week, and you should absolutely see it. Guys, that's going to be my ranking of all 3 Robert Eggers movies from worst to best. This is just kind of my excuse to be able to deep dive back into all of his other 3 films and get your guys' thoughts as well on them. So make sure to leave a comment down below. Are you guys excited for Robert Eggers' new film, The Northman? Do you like his other ones, or have you never really been a fan of them? Let's discuss it all down there, as well as making sure, again, to hit that like and subscribe button. Head on over to Sam Chun Films on how to see films early, and of course, just a big thank you guys to you again. So of course, until next time, stay classy.